We have two invests in the Atlantic and a hurricane off the coast of Mexico. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics, and our two areas of invest, the first one is 96L, and that's sitting off the east coast of the U.S. It looks like it might become a tropical depression or storm before moving inland, probably in Georgia or South Carolina in the next 24 hours or so, and it could cause some wet and squally weather along the coast. We'll talk about that. And then our invest that we've had for a day or so, 95L, is right here in the central Atlantic, and it's flaring up a bit tonight. This could be something to watch down the road. Not necessarily before the islands, but maybe sometime in the areas of the Caribbean, Bahamas, or the Gulf of Mexico. I'll talk about that in just a bit. Here's the latest model guidance on our invest off the East Coast. You can see pretty straightforward, west-northwest, right into the coast. The European ensembles take it into Georgia, and then we have the GFS models. These are as of 18Z, and they take it also as a depression, maybe a tropical storm, into the coast of Georgia. So landfalls in Georgia are rare because it's such a small area of coastline right in there. They either go to Florida or they turn into the Carolinas. This one might slide right into Georgia. Thankfully, it would be a tropical depression or a storm at most, not a hurricane. As we look at the satellite of it, this is the visible as the sun goes down. I'm seeing maybe something there. It got a little disorganized during the afternoon, but it is flaring up here, and it's kind of caught up. You can see this upper level low here off towards its west there. We could kind of see the flare-up blow into a little tropical storm by morning. We'll wait and see what happens overnight. Nevertheless, it's going to be right on the doorstep of South Carolina and Georgia, so if you're on the beach on vacation or something, you guys could be in for some wet weather, say tomorrow morning, if that does indeed take place. Now, one of the reasons we may see development isn't just because it's going to be crossing those warm Gulf Stream waters, but it's also because upper-level winds are somewhat favorable. You can see it does have rather low wind shear in this general area north of the Bahamas. You can see it even better on the shear tendencies. Whenever you have yellows and reds and oranges, this is very high wind shear. But when you have blues and blacks and even dark greens, that's favorable. So this thing has kind of favorable conditions for a fast-moving tropical system into the East Coast in late June. So that's why it could get a name. And by the way, the next name on our name list is Danny. So we'll wait and see if this does become Danny. Here's the radar of most of the United States. You can see some of the squally weather here offshore. That'll be moving into Georgia and South Carolina overnight and into the morning. And again, it's just going to be moist, tropical, humid air as this tropical feature moves into the coast, whether or not it ever gets a name. Now, another invest is the one I mentioned out in the Atlantic. This is 95L, and it's flaring up here way out there, thousands of miles away from the Leeward Islands. But the model guidance keeps this moving west or west-northwest, and the consensus is somewhere near the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas, or the Caribbean in about 5 days. Now, some of the models want to turn it out, and others want to keep it moving towards the west. Now remember, if the system is weaker and it's caught in the low-level flow, it'll generally move more west. If it became a tropical storm or a hurricane or a stronger hurricane, it'll move more poleward, unless there's something to keep it from moving north, like a strong dominant ridge. So right now, we're going to watch it carefully. It could bring some squally weather to the islands in a couple of days. After that, whether or not it becomes a tropical cyclone, we don't know. For all we know, it could pop up here and move out to sea as a measly tropical storm, or it could end up in the Caribbean or the Gulf, and we'd have to deal with it down the line as something to watch. So it's just a feature right now we're keeping an eye on. But I do have to say I'm a little impressed with it. Tiny little thing, but little curly Q out here in the central Atlantic. I wonder if that means trouble off the coast of Africa in about, say, 2 to 3 months' time, when the Cape Verde hurricane season really cranks up. Finally, we're moving out into areas of Mexico here, off the coastline of Mexico. We have Hurricane Enrique. Enrique is at 19.4 north, 105.8 west, and the winds are 90 miles per hour. It's getting up there close to Category 2. It's a potent hurricane. It's moving very slowly north at 8, right along the coastline of Mexico, lurking just offshore, as the Hurricane Center puts it. And again, it is expected to stay just offshore and weaken to a tropical storm, but make landfall Wednesday here on the Baja and then eventually dissipate into a depression by Thursday. Nevertheless, heavy rainfall, squally weather, and high surf. We do have a hurricane warning in effect from Playa, Perula to Cabo, Corrientes in Mexico, and a hurricane watch from Playa, Perula to Manzanillo, Mexico. And this is areas of tropical storm conditions as well. You can see those tropical storm winds affecting the coast. Looks like the core of the hurricane winds are just offshore. Nevertheless, it's still causing some outer rain bands, likely to produce heavy rain, and that could cause life-threatening flooding and mudslides. Also, the core of Enrique should pass very close, and that's why the hurricane warning's in effect. Hurricane conditions are possible in that hurricane warning and watch area in the next 24 hours. And number 3, the swells are expected to produce high tides and rip currents along areas of Mexico, high swells and rip currents and surf over the next couple of days. So we're dealing with a hurricane there. Here's a look at the visible, and you can see it almost looks like it's not moving. It's moving north at 8, but it's moving so slowly that when I speed that up, you could barely tell that it's moving at all. It almost looks stationary, and that would be very bad news because then it would just rain like mad over these higher elevations of the mountains of Mexico, and we don't want that at all. We'd get mudslides and flash flooding. It'd be very dangerous. But again, the hurricane's expected to pool like this and weaken. So thankfully, we won't have a direct landfall, but definitely indirect impacts, no doubt. Here's the radar image. Well, this was the radar. There you go. Look at that donut. Right off the coast there is Puerto Vallarta, and it looks like it's going to remain offshore, thankfully. Looks like a potent little hurricane there with Hurricane Enrique. So that's the tropical update for this Sunday night. Again, we're going to watch the Atlantic. This system could become a tropical storm. This one could do something down the road. The next 2 names are Danny and Elsa. So we'll wait and see if we get Danny and Elsa. In the meantime, Enrique, a hurricane, lurking off the coast of Mexico. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. I'll talk to you guys next time.